Let's bring it this now. Union AMCU is blaming a lack of regulation for the Boksburg gas tank explosion. It says government must ensure that hazardous materials are not transported through residential areas. Now, the union also wants police escorts if tankers are forced to go through towns. So let's discuss this now with the union's president, Mr. Joseph Mathunjwa, joining me this morning to take this conversation forward. Mr. Mathunjwa, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. I mean, quite a tragedy. Of course, updating this morning as well that the number of fatalities has increased from 15 now to 18, many more injured. Staffers at the Tambo Memorial Hospital, I'm sure you also know of this, 3 staffers also dead, and many patients equally affected within the hospital by this tanker. In your view, who exactly is to be blamed for this avoidable tragedy?
Thank you and good morning to your viewers. Firstly, we would like to pass or convey our condolences to the family and who lost their loved ones, and those that are injured, we wish them a speedy recovery. May the love of God comfort them and heal them. Thank you. I mean, you will remember years or before 1994, every town when you enter, you will find there will be a traffic cop, and then there will be a visible signage with regard to the size of the truck, whether is it supposed to go through the town or not. So those traffic cops were there to divert such trucks like this not to enter into the communities. So it's a lack of the bylaws by the government. If the bylaws were adhered to, this accident could have been avoided, because this truck would have never been in that vicinity by that time.
Right. And also, to my understanding, Mr. Mathunjwa, isn't there supposed to be an inspection of routes so that where there are indeed breaches, the private company, the government as well is able, like you mentioned, to regulate that this particular route or this particular bridge cannot accommodate a vehicle of this size? And I would imagine that that should be standard procedure by a company before taking on a route, that they know of how that particular infrastructure looks. I mean, if you're traveling from KwaZulu-Natal to Botswana, surely you have done that inspection beforehand.
Yes, indeed. I think the regulation should emphasize such that any transportation of these dangerous chemicals should be accompanied by the law enforcement, whether it's the police and also or which are the traffic cop and competent people. And such things, I don't think that this has ever happened. This person, they just loaded the chemical and drive through to the community. That's why we are saying it's a lack of enforcement in terms of the bylaws. And secondly, with these technologies that we experience in our cars, they should be enforced. The government must have more regulations that the collision avoidance systems should be installed to each and every truck in South Africa that is transporting any goods for that matter, and make sure that it's working, is functional, and those that are not installed should be taken off the road. And also to avoid this kind of accident during public holidays. You will remember before 1994, the goods trucks were not allowed during public holidays in any public roads. So hence, AMCU has been calling for the bulk infrastructure to avoid such accidents. These gases should be transported by rail. It must not be closer to any community. Can you imagine such truck in the congested, maybe N1 or M1 in Johannesburg, and in encounter such, how many people will be dying? We experience these trucks in our towns, in our community, without any law enforcement. That's why we are blaming the government, that the government themselves as a regulator, they were lacking when it comes to this accidents. This accident could have been avoided if the government were doing what they're supposed to do at the end of the day.
Yeah. So where do you think we got it wrong? You painted a picture that there was usually an escort by, traffic officials back in 1994 whenever there would be a vehicle of this magnitude. You also say in your statement that the police and the fire brigade were meant to at least evacuate, that particular area, just so that, like as you mentioned, if we can imagine, if the N1 was full and this accident occurred there, that evacuation would have been key to saving lives. Where do you think government got it wrong, Mr. Mathunjwa? Where do you think we've come to a point, or how do we come to this point where you even term us as a country a failed state?
Yeah, it's a banana republic where everyone can do whatever it pleases. If there is no leadership, that's why AMCU has been saying this country is in autopilot when it was not even fashionable to say it. Because if there was leadership, surely these drivers or this accident could have been avoided. It's a lack of enforcement of regulation, if there is any. Hence, we were saying the truck should have been escorted by law enforcement. Secondly, the route where it should travel should have been identified. And the community where it was supposed to travel should be evacuated in that area, of which all these things has never happened. So therefore, at the end of the day, they will be blaming the driver at the end of the day without knowing whether the driver was under distress from the company. They forced them to take, shortcuts. The fatigue is also, need to be looked at. And furthermore, we have to make sure that the government put new regulation or enforce regulations that in the public space, there shouldn't be any trucks that is traveling or is driving through the communities. Hence, this accident could have been avoided. This is a man error. This accident was caused by human error. For instance, in the mining sector, you might have experienced this. When there is a blasting in the open cast, where there will be, maybe there is a national road like a freeway, the traffic will be stopped for an hour until the blasting is completed, and make sure that there are no rocks on the road, and then the traffic will be allowed to flow. So in these instances, why these capitals are not forced to adhere to such regulation if there is any?
And that begs to question if whether profits were placed before people's lives there, Mr. Mathunjwa.
It was. Yeah. Surely it was.
How would you like to see...
It goes without saying.
Yes, continue your point.
I'm saying it's clearly that the profit was put before the lives of the people. We need to check this driver, did he have enough rest? Because the fatigue could be another thing that could have caused this an accident. Two, how many drivers per truck? Because, surely you need to have about two, from Richards Bay to Botswana is quite a distance. So the private sector or the white monopoly capital is doing as they pleases in this country. Recently, we were experiencing almost 20 young people, scholars, who died in Pongola. What happened? Each and every month in this country, if it's not massacre, we are experiencing pandemics. If it's not pandemic, we are experiencing such things. Where is the leadership of the country?
That's the question. When it comes to this particular investigation, which we're being told is still being conducted, how would AMCU like to see these investigations carried out?
We welcome that the government has set up the investigation that will be going through to all this but surely the responsibility must not be shifted to the driver. The responsibility must be with the company. The company must take full responsibility. A worker or a driver shouldn't be an easy target. About this. The regulation must see that the truck was in compliance, the driver was competent enough to transport such dangerous material. And all those points should be asked, during this investigation team that is set by the government.
We'll leave it then. I appreciate you speaking to me and adding your voice to this issue. President Joseph Mathunjwa of AMCU, thank you so much for your time. And